Hey everybody, it's Tracy Brown and you are listening or watching and participating in the Live Summit From Hatred to Harmony, sponsored by Stained Glass Spirit. And in this segment, I am going to be talking to the fabulous, wonderful, amazing Dr. John Waterhouse. And if this is your first time being exposed to Stained Glass Spirit, I just want to encourage you to check out the Facebook page or check out the website, stainedglassspirit.net. And what we do is we focus on the intersection between diversity, inclusion, and spirituality. So my name is Tracy Brown. I'm the founder of Stained Glass Spirit and the author of the book, Stained Glass Spirit. What's the name of the book? What's the subtitle? No, Stained Glass Spirit, Becoming a Spiritual Community Where Oneness Does Not Require Sameness. I think maybe I said that once too many times today. And I do get to spend this next 30 minutes with John Waterhouse. Now, if you know John Waterhouse, you know that if I stop to introduce him and tell you all of his accomplishments and how amazing he is, that would probably take up a minimum of 15 minutes of our time. So I'm not going to do that. And instead, we're going to dive directly into the conversation. And if you want to know more about John, then you can just Google him and you will have 14,000 search results or more. So, hey, John, how are you?
Tracy, it's really good to see you. I'm delighted and honored to be here.
Oh, good. We've got good sound. I always like doing that sound check and the hello question, but let's dive in. This idea, this concept that there is a spiritual imperative, or our teachings, our spiritual teachings require us, inspire us to interrupt or stop racism, is an idea that a lot of people haven't thought of until recently. So what makes you interested in having a conversation about that or talking about that?
Well, I think it's fundamental to our teaching, because what we teach the world is that the presence of the divine is everywhere and always. So who is it that would be left out if God is ubiquitous, omnipresent, and everywhere always? Who would not be the presence of the divine? And that takes some work, because most of us have the mindset that there are good people and bad people, and there are less people and greater people, and that can't be so if you believe the science of mind, if you believe this teaching. Now, that doesn't mean that plenty of people haven't tried to practice this teaching without understanding that, but that's the essence of it for me. If you understand that and you live according to that, then you cannot look at any person as less than yourself. It just wouldn't make sense.
Well, a lot of people may understand it, but you added something that I cannot let go by. Understand it and live by it.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You have to live it. You absolutely do. And that means that you have to continuously check yourself for how you're seeing the world and how you're relating to those around you, and what judgments are sliding across your mind at any moment. What is it that's separating you from the people around you? Most of it's ego-based. Most of it is based in a lesser sense of oneself that everyone projects onto others. But all of it is inaccurate, incorrect, and frankly, it's a lie. So if you want to live according to a lie, you can do that, and I suppose there are plenty of people that do it. But it doesn't make sense from the vantage point of who we are. And it's always been about not just thinking it, but actually living the principles of science of mind.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I gravitated toward Science of Mind and Centers for Spiritual Living was the living part, right? So I had studied transcendentalism. I had studied different forms of mental science. I had actually been exposed to many different religions and denominations. But from a New Thought perspective, there were a lot of options that were about the mental thought, and thoughts create things and all of that. But there was a piece that, as I learned more and more about religious science and science of mind, that made me understand the living it part, because
Yes.
I think a lot of us do just want to think about it. So, and you said, yeah, we can know something and not choose to live by it truthfully, and instead we end up living by things that are inaccurate, incorrect, and basically a lie. So two things came to mind when you said that. One was H.B. Jeffries in Principles for Healing. One of my favorite quotes from that book is, paraphrase, some people, or many people, think they're living by principle when they're really living by prejudice. And then when you said inaccurate, incorrect, and living a lie, it's like, yeah, Ernest Holmes really made it very clear, right? Our job is to look a lie in the face and deny its power and move toward the truth. So I'm going to look at that lie. I can't deny it. I can't ignore it. I can't pretend it's not there, but I have to look at it, deny that it has more power than the spiritual truth, and then be about the business of revealing the spiritual truth in physical form.
Exactly, exactly. And you can't be afraid of that lie. If because a parent or someone that you admire helped you find that idea and put it into your psyche, that does not mean that it's to be revered and it's an untouchable. We have to look at it and not be afraid of it, be willing to look at it. My Native American teacher said, everything I tell you is a lie, which means he was saying to me, consider everything I say to you. Do not accept it just because I say it. Think about it, consider it, ponder it, play with it, see what's there for you. And then you'll find something worth using. But just to accept it because someone that you revere said it doesn't make it useful. In fact, it can be quite the contrary.
So I know this, but it just struck me as you said that, as you shared that you just saying the phrase, my Native American teacher, and give people some context around that, because many people, even who know you, may not know that the study that you've done and the way that has shaped your life.
Well, it did have a great impact on my life. I many years ago started doing men's work, and I created a men's circle. And one of the men came one night and said, I'm doing a vision quest. I said, what's that? And he explained it to me, and I said, I want to do it. And so he gave me the name of his teacher and gave me a couple of clues on how to act when I went to see him. I called and made a time to sit with him, and we started on this amazing quest. And if I told you everything I could tell you about that, we'd be here all day. But what he did was he taught me how to be accountable. And he did it over and over again because I needed it that way. And he was a wonderful teacher. He didn't tell me to do certain things. He just asked questions. And his biggest question always was, what do you want? In fact, I went to him when I first ran for office in our spiritual community. And he asked me why I would do that. And my answer came out of nowhere. And that was, I had this great desire to help these two organizations become one. And he said, well, go do it. And he was that simple. It wasn't anything extravagant, but his teachings were so clear. His way of being in the world was something worth modeling. And so I'm always grateful to Will Rocking Bear for the impact that he had on my life when he was here in physical form, and occasionally gets on me from wherever he is now. So it was only a good thing in so many ways. And I had the opportunity from him to meet other members of Native communities around the country. I was twice a guest at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota, where I stayed in the home of a Sioux shaman, and was extraordinarily impacted by that as well. So what the second time was interesting in that our community did a lot of food storage around just in 1999. Remember, there was a thing called Y2K, and I said to my community, I don't know if this is going to be a problem or not, but if you think so, let's just store some food. So we bought massive amounts of bulk food and put it into containers. And when 2020 or when 2000 came along, everybody had all this food. They were, what are you going to do with it? I said, I know some folks up in South Dakota that might be able to use this. So I drove a truck up with someone else who happens to now be a minister in our movement, Cliff Rubin. And we drove from Asheville, North Carolina to Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and brought a rider truck full of food. And it was funny because his name was Looks for Buffalo. Floyd Hand was his name. He was the shaman, and we came, sat in his living room. He was always very gracious with us. And he said, so you're here for, I said, well, remember I was going to bring some food. And he looked at one of his young men there and said, go take care of that. And the guy came in with his eyes big and saying, it's too much food for us to put there. It was lovely. It was lovely. So my experience with Native people are that they have this deep sense of spirituality that is grounded in the earth elements, that they use the things in our environment to see God. I remember once Rocking Bear, someone saying to him, there was this bird that flew across. It was a crow, and it flew across and sat on a perch right near me. And Rocking Bear said, well, what did that bird say to you? And the guy was lost. He had no idea what that meant. But what I realize now is that all sentient beings have intelligence, and they may not speak the language that we speak, but they do speak to us if we'll listen. So that has always been a powerful part of my life.
If we will listen, that's so true. We don't listen to other human beings. Many people would find it difficult to listen to other sentient beings. But one of the reasons I asked you to expound on that a little bit is because I am guessing that there are some people who would be like, what's a white guy got to say about ending racism, right? Some people would say, white guys are the problem that caused the racism. And, who is this guy, this John Waterhouse guy talking about there's a spiritual imperative? And I think that's all a part of that silent tape that is running all the time, that we have these unconscious beliefs that make us lean in or move away. And the story that someone would make up about you would not have included any of that experience.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
When I was working on my doctorate, I had the great honor of having a mentor in that program who supervised my internship. And the internship was working with a large school district in North Carolina in a major city and evaluating them from that idea of diversity. This was back in the 1990s, so it was a good while ago. But it was a real eye-opener for me. This mentor of mine, his name was Forrest Toms. He received his doctorate from Howard University. He was this incredibly articulate, clear, powerful man, and being in his presence was always a delight. And he treated me like family, and it was always just an honor to be with him. And in the midst of that program, he said, "Okay, we're meeting with all of the administrators and quite a number of teachers. There'll be hundreds of people in the room, and I want you to present this piece on racism." Whoa, 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 whoa! Dr. Toms, you're the expert on this. I'm your lowly apprentice here. Why would you want me to do that? And what he said to me was, in this environment, for me to get up and try to explain to these mostly white administrators and teachers this whole idea of this topic would seem self-serving. Whereas if you get up and do it, you can speak with the authority of saying, I've looked at this from my whiteness, and I find value in us making changes in our world. And he had me do it, and I got up and did it. And I remember that day, and there were some people really mad at me in that room. Of course, I didn't know them, so I had, it was not important to me. But there were people that just could not accept the fact that they were in any way contributing to this idea of racism. And what I've come to believe from that is that, yes, there are people that hate. There are angry, hateful people in the world. But you can spot them. They're easy to spot. And you can know how to deal with them. It's the ones that are going, I'm not a racist, I don't do anything like that are the problem. And I don't mean to say that their problem is that they're bad or anything. They just don't understand because their life is not impacted by it. Yet they have all of these things happening in their lives that go easy because of the race they happen to be. And you have to self-evaluate to see this. You have to want to look at it. Nobody's going to look at it if, it's that line, Black Lives Matter, no, all lives matter. Well, yes, of course, all lives matter, but Black lives matter too, equally. And we can't differentiate there. We have to be all on the same page that what we're focusing on is that there's a part of our society that has not had the same opportunity as much of the rest of our society. And the only ones that can fix that are the ones that have those advantages. They're the only ones that can fix it. And that was the conversation that day and has been for me in many other occasions. And even though there are always people that reject it, there are usually people that go, I get it. I'm starting to get it. So that's the blessing in all of that for me.
And what we teach and what we practice too is if you're always moving toward the intention, don't be distracted by the people who reject it.
Exactly.
Keep moving.
In fact, use them as a motivator to realize that how important the work is.
Yes. So let's bring that together with the, going back to spiritual principle and spiritual truth. Like this, it all makes sense when we think about it and we talk about what the human experience is, and we talk about, the resistance, and we talk about you cannot see, right? I can't look at John Waterhouse and really, if I don't know you at all, have any clue about what experiences you've had or where you land on this particular topic. And it is simple. You started out really simple. It's like the basic of our teaching. But for someone who still doesn't see that, and they've been in New Thought, they've been educated in New Thought for a while, what else would you tell them, or is there an example that comes to mind?
Well, there's that old saying that if I hear it, I forget it. If I see it, I remember it. If I do it, I understand. And where people need to get to is a level of understand, so they must do something. So that's why, for me, it's always about asking a question that they have to grapple with. So they have to do something. And the question goes back to where we started here. If you believe in the teachings of science of mind, that God is everywhere and always, then that presence must be valued at every point. So how can you be in alignment with that principle and have any kind of prejudice or any kind of resistance to anyone on the planet? I don't believe in evil people. I believe that there are people in the world that are struggling with understanding how to be human. Absolutely, of all races. That's not an exclusive in any way. So those people are around, and we don't necessarily want to engage them when they're totally unclear about who they are and why they're here. But there are plenty of people all day long that we do deal with, that we do interact with, that we have to apply these principles to. because it's about how we apply the principles that's important, not how somebody else does.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
It's
can't,
important for
I
us
can't
as,
stop doing it because you're not applying the principles.
that's a slippery slope.
That doesn't let me off the hook.
I wouldn't think that would work. I mean, that sounds like trying to find an out, and then you're back to ground zero, and you've really not understood anything here. So the question is, how can you reconcile those two understandings of the world? And nobody should be able to do that in a half hour.
That is true. That is true. One of the things that I love about these conversations today is hearing, different aspects of it, and hearing it would still keep going back to that core message over and over and over again. So it's frustrating at one level. It feels a little frustrating that we're even needing to spend, all the time to have this conversation over and over. But I'm trying to stay focused on where we're going. If this is the conversation we need to have today so that we can get closer to harmony being the norm,
Yes.
then I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to listen to 11 different conversations or 12 different recordings today. I'm willing to read these 5 books. I'm willing. So, I mean, really, for those of you who are, on Facebook or watching the video, I'm curious, like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to invest? You're hearing from Dr. John and from everyone else why we move forward, why we must act. What are you willing to do?
And in that is leadership. And you and I both understand the concept of leadership. Every movement, every change requires someone saying, let's go this way. And that's what's happening right now. The voices are coming up saying, let's go this way. And the ones that do that in an encouraging, inviting, awakening tone will get the response they want.
Encouraging, inviting, empowering.
Empowering indeed, yes.
Yeah. It's funny, we know that in our humanness, one of the questions that we most looked to have answered is, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. Right? What's in it for me? What is in it for me to make racism go away? What's in it for me to interrupt racism when I see it happening? What's in it for me? And I don't know, what comes to mind for you? How would you answer that question?
I hope people don't look at our time together and say, wow, there were some cliches there. But truly, the answer that comes as you say that is a world that works for everyone. Is there anyone that doesn't want to live in a better world? Is that not worth the effort for everyone to lift their consciousness to higher levels so that in their life they're leaving a legacy of a better world? That works for me. That's all I need. Because I don't need things to be the way they've always been. I need them to be better. And that's what this conversation is about, a better world.
A better world, yes, absolutely. So let's go to one of the sticky situations that cowhen I've been in conversation with people who perceive themselves as being very spiritually grounded and spiritually centered. There are 2 things. The first one is this this part of the conversation gets to a part and they say, well, I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to use, prayer as my primary, or spiritual mind treatment as my primary spiritual practice, and this must change. And I might say, okay, I agree. This is, I do that too. And what else are you going to do? And they say, well, that's all I am supposed to do. Ernest Holmes said that This is all mental
oh,
science.
oh, oh, no, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
I'll stop there. You got the idea.
Yeah, thank you. Because treatment does not stop at, and so it is. That's the beginning of treatment. There must be action that follows treatment. Anyone who thinks they can simply say words, either out loud or silently in their closet, that's important. That's important work. It's powerful work, but it cannot be separated from action. You must live those words. You must make your life about the world being the way you're declaring it is in your treatment work. That we don't get off there. You know, you don't treat that the lump in your side goes away. You treat knowing that you're healthy and whole, and you go see a friggin' doctor. You know, you gotta act on everything. This is not about sitting on a mountaintop and reciting prayers. That's ridiculous.
Well, good. So then the next thing that comes up all the time is, but you know, Dr. John, I've learned so much from you over the years, but when you stood in the platform last Sunday and you said Black Lives Matter, that is not what we are about. And that was, why are you bringing politics into our Sunday service? You know, if you keep doing this, I'm just going to have to leave.
The day I gave that talk, 3 people got up and left. And that's okay. You know, bless them, wish them well. That can't stop me from saying what is important. And I don't say it from a political vantage point. Everything I say on Sunday morning is from a spiritual context. It has to be. That's why I'm here. I'm here to create spiritual understanding. And what's going on in the world is often plenty of fodder for discovering and exploring spiritual concept. So I'm not stuffing politics down anybody's throat. I have mentioned politicians many times in talks, but only in the sense of how it applies to a spiritual understanding, never in judgment.
Yeah, there's that part that is everything that is happening is spiritual. You know, why do we conveniently, the politics is people interacting in the way a society has created it, and in that sense we're you know, expressing and expanding life. But this idea of there has to be a separation, and that these 5 things are just political, or these, you know, this list of topics is political, is puzzling to me. That I know I have a bias. My bias is that the reason we do our spiritual work and that we learn about spirituality is because those are the tools and resources that help us navigate through the human condition. It doesn't mean the human condition goes away.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you're talking about it, or any minister or leader or speaker is talking about it from the platform, from a context of, this is what my spiritual truth is, or this is what my spiritual philosophy teaches me to do, or how to handle this thing that's happening in the world, then that's where it should be happening. If I'm not getting guidance from my spiritual leaders, where am I going to get guidance from?
Probably some places that are going to not make your life so easy and pleasant and evolving. At least that would be my take.
So what is the hardest thing, the most difficult thing about these conversations that I am having today? It is definitely that they are only 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
That is the most difficult thing. And so when I look over at the clock and go, what? We've been talking 30 minutes already? It just breaks my heart. So before I ask you to share like a closing comment, the most important thing that you want people to walk away with, I just want to remind everyone that I am having a conversation with Dr. John Waterhouse from North Carolina, and he definitely has dropped some wisdom and some food for thought. So if you are just jumping in, you do want to go back and watch the recording. And all of this is simply part of a day-long focus on moving from hatred to harmony, and why, as spiritually guided people, it is so very important for us to understand that we have a role to play in interrupting and ending racism. So, John, closing comment or thoughts?
Yes. Be vigilant. Everyone, be vigilant. Stay with this. Never think that you understand everything about something. You don't. And nothing right now seems more important than to understand this. So when we take the time inwardly and through other resources to understand more deeply, we have a better life. And if we have a better life, then we live in a better world. It all fits together because there's only one thing going on. Thank you, Tracy.
Beautiful, beautiful. So on Facebook, please, any comments you have, what's your closing thought, please add it into the chat, and we will see you on the next recording.